Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Disney Pixar's Up, featuring the voices of Ed Asner, Christopher Plummer, Jordan Nagel, no, Nagai, excuse me. I don't know if I said it wrong. Please forgive me, pal. And Delroy Lindo, and directed by Pete Docter. Now, before I get into Pete Docter, I did review his Monsters Inc. earlier this year as part of I was bored and COVID was around, and I just felt like needing something to review as a series. But now that I'm here, because he's got an upcoming movie, Soul, which looks really good, so I thought I'd review it for the show. So I'm going to start not with Monsters Inc., because I already did that, but with Up, the Pixar film that I think I remember going to theaters in 3D and regular for this thing. And let me just say, the 3D doesn't add anything, but after, but I do remember enjoying this. I don't know if it's going to be as good now, but we'll see what happens. But I have happened to have met Ed Asner at a film festival, let's say. I think I'll say something about. Oh yeah, I do say something about that. Let's just get into the movie and then I'll get into details. As a young boy, Carl Fredricksen always knew adventures out there, thanks to watching some Charles Muntz movies about a snipe rolling around, and a snipe is a type of bird. While pretending to fly, Carl goes inside a house where he meets the love of his life, Ellie, who will eventually be his wife when they become adults, as they love each other and they save money for a vacation to Paradise Falls until things in their house break apart, like the roof, for example. Eventually, they grow old together, and Carl tries to surprise Ellie to a vacation to Paradise Falls until she falls down and winds up in the hospital bed and passes away, which is very sad. But what makes the scenes genius is when they're adults, they don't have any dialogue for 5 minutes, and I love how we know Carl and Ellie without saying one word. And the house they live in is like a character in this movie. We pick up with 78-year-old Carl, voiced by Ed Asner, whom I've met in person at a film festival, and he was a nice man to me when I met him in person, and I really do like and connect with Carl, as he has a cane and tries to protect his house from the construction workers ruining the place. We also meet a wilderness explorer named Russell, voiced by Jordan Nagai, wanting to help Carl out to become a senior wilderness explorer, as Carl tells Russell to find the snipe. And I really like Russell as the sidekick of this movie. Carl assaults a construction worker with his cane after the construction worker wants to help fix his mailbox, and has no choice but to go to court and go to a retirement home called Shady Oaks. But as soon as the people from the retirement home come by the house, Carl makes balloons fly him in the house to Paradise Falls, and I love the balloons flying the house to that particular location. I really like the sequence as far as we get to know Carl much better, in my opinion. Carl finds Russell on his front porch while the house is flying and lets Russell in reluctantly as he learns how to drive the house until some dark clouds shake the house around and knocks Carl out until the next day. They're in the middle of nowhere and they go around to some rocks and get to the ground, as Carl realizes there's only one side of the Paradise Falls that they were on, and they walk to the other side of Paradise Falls and try to get to the other side. And the animation in this is outstanding. Some dogs, led by Alpha, Gamma, and Beta, voiced by Delroy Lindo, who voices Beta, chases a special bird, as when Russell finds it, he knows it's a snipe and names it Kevin, while Russell does his business. And after he plays with Kevin, and Carl tries to get it away from them, which is a very colorful bird, and I do like Kevin as a bird. Carl and Russell meet a talking dog named Doug, who's a very entertaining character, and the dog's shouting squirrel is hysterical, especially on Alpha when he sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks when he talks with Beta and Gamma, and I'm really liking these characters as well as the plot of the movie. And director Pete Docter, I have his autograph. I'll show you if you guys haven't seen the Monsters Inc. show and haven't seen it yet. But I'll show it again next week when I get to Inside Out. Is very good at telling a story so beautifully with the animation, and Pixar does an amazing job with making us care for what's going on in this plot. Kevin, as the audience finds out, is a girl and goes to her babies as Alpha, Gamma, and Beta find Doug, who lost the bird, with Russell and Carl and take them to their master, aka Charles Muntz, voiced by Christopher Plummer, and invites them to eat as guests. And when dinner begins, Carl realizes Charles is after Kevin quickly after they meet for the first time. And Carl sees Kevin and get into a chase on foot against the dogs, and Doug helps them escape, and one of the dogs bites Kevin's leg and wounds her, and part of the house is wrecked, and they bring her back to her babies, and Charles catches up with them, and Carl is left with a choice: save Kevin or save the house because it was burning up at the time. And takes Kevin away, Charles does, and Russell is upset that they leave Kevin behind, and Carl yells at Doug and says, "Bad dog," and leaves them for a little bit, and Russell leaves Carl behind to save Kevin, which is really depressing, but very good writing that we care for the things happening in this movie. Carl does eventually help Russell as Doug was underneath the porch until Carl flies to Charles' float plane and have a battle to save Kevin and return to her babies. The Carl versus Charles fight was kind of intense, as Carl throws a ball to the dogs to distract them while Russell is hanging from the house, and Doug traps Alpha on the steering wheel as Carl and Kevin get to the top of the float plane, and Doug becomes Alpha and joins them, and by them I'm talking about Carl and Russell, and they get to the house until Charles shoots at the balloons and tries to get Kevin, and then he falls as well as the house and is sacrificed, and they get Kevin back to her babies, which are adorable. And Russell earns the assisting the elderly badge and becomes the senior wilderness explorer, and also gets the Ellie badge, and Doug remains Carl's dog. And I really dig this climax and ending. It was very kind-hearted, I will say. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.1 out of 10. This was sad in the first 10 minutes, but the animation is amazing to look at, particularly the balloons. The thing Pixar does very well is telling a story, as well as making us care about the characters. There were times when the movie got to be adorable, and it is very kind-hearted, and the script is genius, I'll say. And I will be back with the autographed Inside Out next time, and I will be back with that review next time. And until we get there, up, and away.